Welcome to season 2 of Where Passion Meets Purpose. I'm your host, Jen Mentesana. Each week, I sit down with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and trailblazers who share their raw, real stories of perseverance, resilience, and building a life and business with impact. We talk about everything from entrepreneurship and family to purpose and living fully. My goal is to inspire you to start that dream, push through the hard seasons, and wake up every single day ready to live the life you were born to live with passion and purpose. Welcome back, everyone, to Where Passion Meets Purpose. Thank you so much for being here today. I have a super fun episode for you guys right now. I am so excited. And I'm excited every week, as I always say, because I always have amazing guests. But this week on the show, we have someone extra special because he is my husband, John. And John is here today to talk about his journey into entrepreneurship, launching his dream to own a restaurant, his foray from corporate America into entrepreneurship, and kind of his passion for food and where that came from, and probably so much more. So without further ado, John, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is so fun. I mean, we've been talking about doing this for a while, and we've been talking about it, doing it in our living room and trying to figure out how to set up 2 computer screens. And it just, now that we're here in the studio, it's perfect timing.
Well, thanks for making the time for me.
Yes, of course.
Like everything else.
Of course. Okay, so I know many of these stories, and there's so many good ones, but I want you to share with our guests, where did you first have that inclination or passion that came from food?
Oh, from food. Well, obviously, it comes from a big Italian family, right? So you wake up in the morning, you eat breakfast. When you're done with breakfast, you talk about what you're going to have for lunch. And then when you're done eating lunch, you start thinking about what you're going to have for dinner. It's a cultural thing. And in my family, as in many, Italian families and other ethnicities, food is a place that everyone kind of came around.
Yeah. Yeah, you obviously, I know you're getting emotional, and it makes me emotional because I know how much this means to you. Your family is very deeply rooted in Italian culture. Your father came from Sicily at 17 years old, I think you said.
16.
16. Yep. Your mom was born into a big Italian family in New Jersey. Her mother was from Naples. You have so much history and culture and passion for that lifestyle. And I think something that maybe a lot of Americans don't understand about Italian roots is it's so much more than what we just see in America, right?
Yeah, it is. It was the place where it wasn't chaos in my family, but we were just doing things. School, work, mom, dad, dogs, aunts, uncles. But the dinner table was the one place that you can stop.
Yeah. And you came all together and had that moment together every single day around food. And I think this is why every movie you see with Italian culture, every, person that you see that's Italian talks big and loud with their hands, and they're always talking about food. And it's so real, and it's so clear that it is part of who you are from the inside out.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about when you first started cooking in the kitchen, helping your grandmother or your mom. What did that look like?
Yeah. So, I got a little emotional there. Obviously, a lot of good family conversations came out at the dinner table, right? Because that's where we all stopped. But yeah, back to, grandmother living with us and come home from school. And the first thing you smelt in the house was her making either meatballs or braciole or some sort of tomato sauce. And it just gave a feeling, right? An emotion. So I learned from that. There was never a recipe. It was always a little bit of this, a little bit of that. As people can always say, give me the recipe, give me your grandmother's recipe, whatever nationality is. No one's grandparents have any recipes, and everybody tries to write them down, but they're not there, right? It's really food from the heart.
Yeah, that's so true, because I'm trying to make, the food that you've been making, and I make your mom's meatballs, and until I sat there and did it with her, I was never really able to make them.
Yeah.
And it's so true about families and culture and recipes that are passed down. My mom had the little recipe book with every little card. She's a baker, so it's a little bit different because everything is exact.
Yep.
But my mom, my mom was kind of the person and you had a funny story about one Thanksgiving showing up at my house, and my mom said, "Oh, I just found this recipe in Better Homes and Gardens and decided to make it today."
Yeah. And then, so my side of the story is I come from tradition. You make, for Thanksgiving, you have pasta before you have turkey, and you have antipasto before you have anything else. So for the first time when I came over to your house for Thanksgiving, I'll never forget, I walked in the house and your mom and dad were great, your grandmother and everyone was there. And your mom turned to you and said, "Jen, I was in line at the grocery store and I saw a magazine and I said, hey, why don't I make this for Thanksgiving dinner?" It blew my mind. Like, it was like, wait a minute. You're testing a recipe on Thanksgiving dinner? Like, this is one of the best holidays where you get to like eat and not feel, guilty about everything, and you get to indulge and still want to indulge. So it was eye-opening for me, right back to culture and back to, what you're used to. It was eye-opening, but it also gave me the perspective of, I don't know, maybe I have some food issues. Maybe I got to let the traditions go.
Well, and didn't you call Frank, your brother, after
100%.
that and say, what did you say to Frank after that Thanksgiving?
I told him the story. We both laughed. And then he said, "How did she do that?" And I said to him, "I don't know, but it kind of feels good if I ever try that." And he said, "You know what? It's amazing. Like, you just kind of have to let it go." He said, "I think I'm going to try that one day too." Yeah. So we laugh about it to this day as we do right now. But no, it's one of our great intro kind of food stories that we probably ever shared, right?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that probably was new for both of us and I grew up with very close friends who were a big Italian family into food and everything, but getting to know you and your family history around food was really inspiring to me. And I think it was a breath of fresh air for you to be around my family that was like this, very Midwestern / meat and potatoes kind of world around food. And so I think the yin and the yang started with that probably.
That's where it starts. And slowly I think I bumped you out of the kitchen, but
well, that's a whole nother story. We won't get to that.
You're still an amazing cook.
Thank you. Well, okay, so you obviously your passion from food started at a very young age. And then fast forward, you go to college, you get out of school, and kind of what was your vision for your life right out of college? What were you thinking was your plan?
Well, I'm going to back up a second. So as a kid, I listened to the radio all the time. I was totally into music. Classic rock was my thing, but I could listen to anything from show tunes to, Frank Sinatra to The Rock. And I remember my senior year of college. I was in New Haven, Connecticut, and I started reading through the newspaper for jobs. And I just kept veering towards like advertising sales. So as I got out of college, I didn't start in the advertising business. I started with an equipment company, an office equipment company, and I ran into someone, and they told me I was in the wrong business. And they said, "You need to get into the broadcasting business." So that's what I did. I did that for 25 years.
So obviously listening to the radio and being passionate about music, I like to say, is possibly a breadcrumb of passion for music that led you into the broadcast media business, specifically radio.
Right.
Around music and sales. And you've kind of always said, and you are, when we first met, you were in sales, a very good salesperson and just someone that intrinsically has that ability to connect with people. And as you like to say, like, you understand and know how to solve problems for people through sales.
Yeah, problem solving is, I don't know if it's a nurture or a nature thing. I think problem solving is a nature thing. I think you try to surround yourself with people that like to solve problems because you just get stuff done. And back to why the restaurant, I joked about it, right? I said, I've been very successful in the broadcast business, and one day for fun, I'm going to open up a restaurant, right? So there it is, fun, and now you have a restaurant business. Now you're in the restaurant business.
Okay, so before you go any further with that, let's back up because you just kind of shoved that under the rug a little bit. So we met in the broadcast business. We were both working in media, and I remember when we first started dating, I asked you, "Is this your forever job? Do you see yourself in media forever?" And you said, one day when I don't need the money, I'm going to open a restaurant.
When I don't need the money.
Right.
Oh boy, wish I knew that.
Yeah. Okay. So one day you walk in the door. We're now married with a baby.
And Olivia.
Yeah. And Olivia, our daughter. And you walk in the door.
And I said, honey, I got fired. Let's open a restaurant.
Right.
And that's the truth. That's straight up.
That is a true story. So you came home from one of your big radio sales jobs. You were a manager at the time, I think, and you got let go.
Yep.
And you just said, it's time.
Yeah. And that was
let's
it.
Go for it.
Yeah. And that was it. You know what? I'm 20 years into the business and I put everything into it. And I said, you know what? No one's going to control my life anymore. And that's really what it was. It was the part where there's doers. And you know what? When you do, and you surround yourself with people that aren't doers, it gets frustrating. As everyone says, it was a blessing in disguise, right? And without that failure, I'm not calling it a failure, without being let go, I wouldn't have had this opportunity, right? And then the do attitude that obviously you have as well, and the people we surround ourselves with, allowed me to go in and create a business plan with my brother and just keep moving forward. And you just chip away and chip away and chip away. And it doesn't happen in a second, right? You got to find the right opportunity. And, I think for the restaurant, and maybe everything in my life, you know what? I believe that it's 95% gut. Like when you know, kind of a thing.
So why don't you take us back a little bit to that journey of because I think it was a 2-year period almost where writing the business plan, finding the right location, getting investors, all that process. I know some of our listeners may be thinking about starting a business or they're in that place in their life where they're maybe getting fired or walking out the door from a corporate job and they want to go follow their dream. Do you have any advice for someone like that?
Yeah, listen, it took more than 2 years. It was probably going on 3.5 years by the time we found a space, put the business plan together, found some, friends and family money, called investors, of course, but friends and family always help. Surround yourself with people that believe in you. Mm-hmm. And taking that next step, it was scary, but you follow your heart, you follow what you think is right. When your gut, you're not thinking, it's right?
Yeah.
And you just keep following it.
Yeah.
And that's the part. And you're gonna run into a wall, and you figure it out. And then you run into the next wall, and you're gonna figure it out. And the business plan that we started with on day one looks completely different.
Yes.
Completely different than what we had by the time we opened it. And even as we opened the restaurant and our concept was what it was and we were building this thing to scale, we still had to keep moving. So what it looked like from day one on a piece of paper looked completely different than what it does today.
I think that's great advice. I think for people I think you have to have a plan. Like there's the business plan for a reason because it gives you something to come back to when you feel lost or you're like, oh, am I getting off track or whatever. But it's just a guideline, right? And it's for the purpose of giving you some structure and something to build off of. But the nature of entrepreneurship, it's always evolving. There's always things that are coming at you and how you react to that and how you turn those things into opportunities that may take you left or right is the beauty of it because nothing ever stays the same.
That's right.
Right? And that's, a metaphor for life as well. But it's so important to know that just start with an idea and a foundation of a vision and build on that vision of those baby steps that are taking you forward. But then as you grow, you're going to shift and change. And that's completely normal.
Yep, 100%. And that's it. If anyone out there is listening and they have that entrepreneurial spirit, even if you don't pursue it, just put a business plan together.
Yeah.
Let's just put it on paper because if you just say, oh, it's this and that, and you brainstorm, you come with these great ideas, it's wonderful. But once you put it in writing, it means something different. Mm-hmm. It does because you took the pen to the paper, mm-hmm. and you can't erase that.
Yeah.
Right. In your memory, you get distracted and all your ideas, you wake up, you have this dream 2:00 in the morning that you want to do this and that. And by the time you wake up in the morning, you forgot what it was. Yep. If you have an idea, mm-hmm. just write it down, make a small business plan. We had a 50-page business plan that was for the first one that I have ever written, I looked back at it literally 2 weeks ago. it was pretty advanced. I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
I just wrote, and I'm not a writer by any means. But if you have that spirit in you, no matter what it is, whether you want to pursue it or not, write it down. It could be a paragraph, it can be 15 pages, but if you write it down and you put it aside and you come back a couple days later, you're going to probably change it. And at some point, if you keep editing it, I believe that you look at it and you say, oh my God, this is actually doable. Like, wait a minute, it's not that hard, though it is, but putting it on paper and having a plan with some structure and keeping it within like the rails of it is great to start, because it will evolve to something else and you don't know what that path is.
Right. And if you don't put it on paper, then it just stays in your head and it feels like this big undoable thing. But when you put it down on paper and then you start to break down the little aspects of it, and every single day you're chipping away at all of those little steps that are getting there. All of a sudden you're like, whoa, I did this and I did this and I did this. Yep. I remember the spreadsheet that we created between you, me, and Frank. And it was like literally, I was yellow and you were blue and Frank was red or green or whatever it was. And these were our tasks. And it was pages and pages of stuff. So when we got to the end of that spreadsheet, almost the end, and we looked back and we were opening the restaurant. It was like, wow, we actually accomplished all those things that we set out to do because we broke them down into little steps to get ourselves to the place to be open for business. Yeah. And it was a pretty amazing accomplishment to feel.
Yeah, and the list kept growing, right? Because as you evolve, right, logistics come into play, and the red, the green, and the yellow, whoever's colors were what. I don't remember, but as we got to the end, the colors were gone. And it's like, wait a minute. That was a lot of colors.
It was a lot of work.
It was just black and white.
Yeah.
And now it's like now it's go time.
Right.
And that's when the rubber met the road and you're on the hook for the lease, and you just go and you ask questions later and you figure it out.
Exactly. Okay. So I'm going to just share with our listeners, we were open in July. We opened in July of 2014. And what happened?
We had lines out the door.
Yeah. We had lines out the door.
Oh my God. And you know what? It felt so normal.
Yeah.
Because we were so entrenched in it that it wasn't a question of whether it was going to work or not.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's pretty amazing to be able to say that. I think we never had a fear if it was going to work.
No.
And I think the belief in yourself and the belief in doing something that that you are good at and that you have something, that you own it, the rest you can figure out. But if you have a belief in yourself, you can accomplish anything. And I think that's for any entrepreneur out there. I'm not saying throw caution to the wind and go open a restaurant tomorrow if that's what you want to do.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. But if you truly have passion and a belief in yourself, you can make your dreams come true and make things happen.
Yeah.
And why do you think it was such a success?
Well, you know what? I just remember the first few months. It felt so normal, even though I've never done it before. But for me, I like feeding people. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I like feeding people because I like to see it the way it makes them feel, because then it makes me feel like something, right? Even when you were there as the hostess and the owner, you were about making people feel comfortable. So I think when you can connect to feelings, both as an owner and as you can connect to clients or guests, connecting with your food and them having a feeling or an experience, that's what it's about, right? Yes, you have to provide customer service. That's amazing. The food has to be on point. But if you don't have that extra element, then I think you're just missing something, because then it turns into work.
100%. So I remember Michael Fairholm gave us, he wrote down when we were starting to open the restaurant, he wrote down 3 letters.
Yep.
Do you remember
G-A-S.
And what is this?
And he put actually G period, A period, S period.
And what does it stand for?
Oh my God, what is this guy like? Back to school, this guy's like tricking me. And he goes, give a shit.
You got to give a shit.
You got to give a shit.
Yeah.
You got to give a shit. And, there's days that are tough and there's days that are easy, but at the end of the day, you got to have gas.
Yep. And we say that all the time. You got to have gas, because at the end of the day, you can be an entrepreneur and think, oh, I'm going to go do this and make money and this and that. But if you don't have passion and you don't give a shit about the outcome of the result of what you're putting out into the world, whether that is food or a service or a widget or whatever, you do have to give a shit about what you do, especially as an entrepreneur, because you have to love it, because you're in it every day. And I think those first few years, I remember I was putting our babies to bed at night, and it would be 9, 10, 11 o'clock sometimes before you walked in the door. And you were there every minute of every day for those first few years.
Yeah. They were long days. And you know what? It didn't feel like they were that long. And that's the point, right?
Exactly.
Because once you have that gas, it's a feeling that you can't really express, right? And for me, I believe that, that passion that you were talking about, you can have more than one passion.
Yes,
you can. And in the sake of being an entrepreneur, that's why you see some of these guys that they have their hands in like 10 or 15 different things. They're built on a different level when you get into that. But I understand that, right? Because I have the passion for the marketing side, and I have the passion for, the broadcast side, and I have the passion for the creative side of the food, and I have the passion for being an entrepreneur, having the ownership. So you can have more than one passion,
100%.
And you got to give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that takes me to the food side. And when you decided what type of food that you wanted to make, and you said, you were throwing pizza parties long before I ever met you.
Yep.
Our thing was testing out different recipes before we had the restaurant. We were inviting friends over. You were making the dough, and we were creating different creations for fun.
Yep.
And then people kept saying, you guys should do this for a living. So talk to me a little bit about pizza. Why pizza? Why this type of pizza?
You know what? Everything falls back to your roots, right? My, first generation Neapolitan. My dad's from Sicily. So obviously, once again, food is important. But as you go through and you test and you say, okay, who do I want this pizza to be? Do I want this style? You know what? I just know what I know. And I knew what I knew from my grandmother, right? And that's Neapolitan style pizza. As much as we tested it and we had friends over, back again, with that being said, it was the emotion that people had around the pizza that made it more acceptable to be like, there's something here, right? There's something here. And the fun part is that we had our friends always create their own pizza, because I didn't want to sit there and cook for everybody. Like, the fun part is the experience. Having, if you talk to like any of our friends when their kids were little, they would all come over our house and we would set up a station, and they were like, how did we do? How do we do? I said, how did you do? Because it didn't, even though I was the pizza guy, it didn't matter, right? Because their creation was their creation.
Yeah.
And there's never, two of the same pizzas.
Right.
So back to the experience. But with that being said, right, the original idea came from, I live my life in a Seinfeld episode, I think, at times. It came back to the episode where on Seinfeld, it was basically make your own pizza kind of a thing, right? So my brain went
where you make your own pie.
Exactly. You make your own pie. And it went back to, okay, so how do I make this? How do I create a business that looks like a hibachi's, right? You sit around a table and everybody makes their pizza. You throw it in the oven. I said, for a $15, $20 pizza, I'm not going to make any money on this. So how do I, kind of repurpose this thing? So it went to the ideation of, okay, back to my grandmother's pizza. It cooks very quickly. It's super amazing ingredients. It's very personal, right? Because it's a 12-inch pizza. And how can I build this thing to scale, right? Because for me, in the restaurant business, there's fine dining and there's other, I'll call it, right? As we always laugh, pizza, tacos, burgers, yeah, right? So, fish where the fish are, as I say, as I always said about In-N-Out, right? What is In-N-Out known for? Burgers and fries, right? So keep it super streamlined, keep it really focused, and just be the best at that. People come to the restaurant and they used to ask, do you have fish? You know what? We are a classic Neapolitan pizza. We want to be known for the best pizza. How's the pasta? It's fine, but we're here for the pizza.
Right.
The pizza's not, the
it's
pasta's
not
fine.
just fine.
It's delicious.
People love our pasta too, so that don't snub the pasta.
Yeah.
Even though we fought it for years to put it on the menu because we're like, nope, we're just pizza.
Yep.
But we finally added a pasta starter, a few, and it's it's one of the most ordered items next to pizza and our amazing salad. So it just goes to show you, you can add on, but stay focused at your core of what you're known for.
Yeah, be known for something, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we have a tagline that we started with years ago when we first opened called "Be local, be authentic."
Yep.
And what does that mean?
The be local, the be local. What I believe in, is just kind of who we are as well. Having a business in the community means that you have to give back, right? Because without them, we have nothing, and vice versa, right? We're bringing them experiences, and our local side is to give back to the community, because without them, like I said, we're nothing.
Exactly.
The authentic side is classic, clean eating Italian food, is which was what I had growing up. My father would basically go to the market from New York City every day, and whatever he brought home, whether it was vegetables or meat or fish or chicken, we would have it that night. Or my mom would go to the grocery store across the street. We didn't do these big shoppings. It was like, okay, what's fresh for the day kind of a thing. And that's how I ate, right? And very European and American, in a small town in New Jersey. But a lot of my friends who were first generation Italian, they ate like that as well. So for us, it was very normal. For my other friends, they're like, how do you eat these like odd things on like a Tuesday? I'm like, I don't know. It just kind of showed up, kind of a thing.
You took me back a minute there when you were talking about your dad going to the market or whatever. Can you tell me the story about the perfect peach?
So
I knew I was going to get you emotional.
No,
here.
it's all good. My brother wrote about it in his book, in his cookbook, right? Once Upon a Tart. Great, amazing book. My brother's an amazing entrepreneur and food and restaurant guy and everything else in between. Anyway, I just remember as a kid, we would go, whether it was in New York City or like a farmer's market in like the countryside of New Jersey or the grocery store, my father would literally go through all of the fruit, all of the vegetables to find the perfect, what he thought was perfect in his mind, right? Peach or onion or zucchini or tomatoes. But my brother and I always called it the perfect peach, right? It's like perfect Polly for someone who has this, thing for needing everything to be perfect. When it came to food, it had to be perfect. It just did, because you wanted the best ingredients, even if it was a Tuesday night meal.
Awesome. It's such a good quality way to live life. And, it's a reminder to slow down and appreciate just the simple things like food and family. And that's what we tried to create at Locale 90. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why you were so passionate about opening it, why we said be local, be authentic, is because we really wanted that to resonate with our community and understand the quality of food is more important than anything. And fresh ingredients and healthy ingredients and this dough and this flour make a difference in your life. And you can share it with family and come around our table. We used to have a big community table in the restaurant. It just took up too much room, so we had to move it out. But that was the idea.
I just had to repurpose it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but even just back to the pizza, it's like people are like, why is your pizza so different? You know why it's different? Honestly, it's really because of the flour and the dough, right? It's non-GMO, it's non-enriched. It's for pizza, it's about the dough. Mm-hmm. It's 00 flour imported from Italy. So that's what our base product is. Clean eating, it's San Marzano tomatoes with sea salt and fresh basil. There's nothing else added to it. Our mozzarella is fresh made by a local Italian guy, and it's imported Parmesan cheese. That is a basic margherita pizza for us. That's clean eating. Like, that's how I ate as a kid. Whether it was a bowl of, pasta with, brown butter and sage. It's 3 ingredients. But I'm going to tell you something. Those 3 ingredients put together the right way will blow your mind away than anything else you can imagine that's out there. So I think, we call it clean eating, of course. And when it comes to our pizza, that's the way we approach everything. There is a health and simplicity style that we are really clear about and we really stand true to when it comes to our products.
And I can say this personally, feeling very proud that we've never wavered from that.
Nope,
Since
never.
day one, people ask us to put barbecue chicken on our pizza, or can you make a Hawaiian pizza with pineapple? Absolutely not. Sorry.
It doesn't work that way. And, once again, classic Italian cooking, our dough, listen, everybody has their style. Portnoy has what he wants. He wants his crunch, and everyone's got the crispy or there's in our dough, flour, sea salt, natural yeast, and water. That's it. There's no sugars. There's no olive oils. There's no mixed blend of oil. It's just clean eating. So that's classic. That's authentic from what I know.
100%. Well, I'm going to switch gears here for a second because I'm wondering if you're willing to talk about the evolution of Locale 90 and Hermosa and where we were headed in terms of our business plan and what happened.
Yeah. So we were 4 years in at Locale, staying true and true to who we were, essentially. Obviously had to move a couple things around. As you say, the business plan never, stays on track. And yes, you have to, meet what the consumers want, and you got to stay true to yourself. So with that said, we've had success, and we saw an opportunity in Hermosa Beach, and we jumped on it very quickly. Didn't even hesitate, right? And went out, right? Talking truth here, right? Here it is. So got an SBA loan with our house and put it out there. And
with our house meaning collateral?
As collateral, that's right. And went out there, we built out the restaurant, and it was gorgeous. And it really stayed in line with our Redondo Beach location. Same feeling, same classic, rustic yet sophisticated restaurant. So same classic, design, right? Because we're building this thing to scale. So we want people to know, right? When you walk into a Locale 90, you know who your brand is, right? Here's the feeling, here's your experience. Designed it, opened, had a lot of early success. And then it slowed down. And
it didn't help that we had probably the biggest torrential rain winter of Southern California's history that winter, because we opened in December of 2016, and then 2017 for 3 months it rained.
Yeah, it literally rained almost every day in 2017. So you know what? It was the winter. You got to grind it out, hoping for the summer, right? Because it's more of a destination place in Hermosa. Grinded it out. For the next year or so, and then things just kind of paused again, rolling into fourth quarter, and we said, "Here we go. Guess what? The lunch crowd is not working, right? In the restaurant business, the lunch crowd is the toughest part of the business. So we say, you know what? Let's close it down. Instead of being a restaurant, we turned it into an event space.
Yeah. And we were doing a ton of catering. Like 4 or 5 events a week.
That's right. So we created a catering team, right? Which was coming out of Hermosa for the most part, right? And we had events all over the place via catering on our mobile oven. And then we started selling just big events. And I was like, all right, I guess we figured it out this time. We're no longer a restaurant. We are an event space, right? Yay, now in the event space business. Dump. COVID runs around the corner. Okay, no more social gathering. Okay, what do we do now? All right, well, a cancellation here, cancellation there. I mean, we're canceling out 6 months in advance. And that's when the rubber met the road. And that's when it ended.
Yep.
And that's when it ended. And found somebody to assume the lease. Place is doing super well right now. And that's when reality kicked me in the teeth. Yeah.
It was tough. It was a tough period. And I will say that first month though, the light bulb went off with the pizza kits.
Oh, for that. Yeah.
So whenever God closes a door, he opens a window, right? Yeah. That's an old saying. And I truly believed that the pizza kits were the window that
Yeah.
saved us, that saved our business as a whole
Yeah.
from going under, because we only lost one location and everything that we put into that. But that first location was still okay, even though we had to be closed for indoor dining. We had to figure out a plan to how we were going to bail ourselves out of this.
Right.
And you pretty quickly were like, I've been thinking about this idea. We're going to do Neapolitan pizza kits.
Yeah, so that was the other one, right? So that was the other thing. A lot of things sit in my brain. So the other idea was, outside of the Benihanas for pizza, was when my kids would sell chocolate chip cookie dough for fundraising and wrapping paper for fundraising, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like driving me crazy. So in my head, I said, well, of course, what if we make a pizza kit, right? And we'll figure it out. But, I'm in the restaurant business and I'm in the events-based business. So, I don't have time for that, right? Literally, when they shut down all the restaurants, in my brain, I knew exactly what I needed to do, and I didn't have a business plan. And we were selling 1,500 pizza kits a week.
Yeah.
Out of our Redondo Beach location, we were closing the deal in Hermosa to get out of that. And the next thing you know, we reached out to a couple people, telling them that we have pizza kits, right? Because you couldn't sit in the restaurant.
Yeah.
And we just told people about it when they came in, because people needed an activity, because people were locked down. Next thing you know, a friend of a friend is looking for someone for their company to keep them motivated. We were literally driving around for 2 days, delivering 365 pizza kits to all of the Dell employees, right? Pasadena, Long Beach. We had like 5 employees just with pizza kits. And we built them, and we sold them, and we sold them, and we sold them. And next thing you know it, the pizza kit thing came up to fruition. And to this day, people still love the pizza kits, right? Because once again, we create an experience, right? So
Exactly.
Come a Friday night or a Tuesday night, get a pizza kit, you're around the table with your family, your friends, you converse, you make your own creative pizza, whether you want to make it oval or round, you want to make it thin, you want to make it Neapolitan, right? So now you have a creative expression on top of an experience. So, right, once again, back to the experience of what food brings. Yeah.
Exactly. It's just, and this is just, again, the example of sometimes when things don't go as planned, because I think there's another saying that goes, you want to give God a good laugh, tell him you've got a plan.
That's right.
We had this plan. Oh, we're going to open 5 to 10 locations in the first 10 years. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. That wasn't God's plan.
Nope.
God had a bigger plan.
Yeah.
And pizza kits were the foray into shifting gears into a different direction.
Yep.
And no longer focusing on multiple retail locations. And so from that, then we started Bar-izza.
From that, we started Bar-izza.
Which is a whole nother
That's
animal.
a whole other thing, right? So now, instead of having people take the time to make pizza, because it is an event, right? So how do I streamline it where people can bring home our product and eat it in a week or eat it in a month or whatever that is? So I did a lot of R&D with our product, and making sure everything was fresh, making sure everything was on point, making sure everything was still authentic to what our product was. We figured out how to create our pizza, top our pizza, vacuum sealed, and quick freeze them. And now we have a product called Bar-izza. So the Bar-izza product, I went out and started, right, because I'm still the sales guy, I went out and sold it to local venues, right? The Comedy Store up in Hollywood, Dignity Center where the LA Galaxy play in the premium levels, local brewing companies where they had opportunities to, sell basically a par-baked pizza, drop it in an oven, and there it is. So that's the next venture of the evolution of the Locale 90 business plan.
Yeah, exactly.
As I said, it starts here, and I said 180. We may be back to like 357 right now. So I don't know where it ever ends. Maybe go 720. But
yep.
Yeah,
it's always evolving and growing, and I think that's as much of not having a plan, you start to embrace
Yeah.
the nature of what business and entrepreneurship is. It's never exact as you maybe envision it, but
Right.
sometimes it's even better.
Yes, of course. And, not getting out of the broadcast business was basically business to business. When you're dealing with business to consumer, you look at it as what's easiest for them? Like, what's their benefit, right? How do they benefit from a pizza kit or a frozen pizza? Life's busy. It's the ease factor, right? It's still clean eating. It's still the same products. It's still the same ingredients, but it's just repurposed for people to use it in their unique situation, whether it's a party or, their kids are home from school at 3:00 and they throw one in the oven. Guess what? Instead of eating a bag of chips, right? Yeah. Or something poor, you have a great pizza that comes right back and holds them off to dinner, and there it is. You're good.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally like throw it in the oven, even frozen. It takes like 3 or 4 minutes. It's back to what it would have been coming out of our oven.
That's it. All of it. The kids love it. When the kids come over to the house and they bring their friends, you know what? We have a Bar-izza. Guess what? 4 minutes later, the pizza's there, and they ate healthy, right? That's what you want. So yeah, it's been pretty successful.
Okay, so that's the Locale 90 story.
Oh boy.
I always have to ask a wrap-up question, and that is, what is the evolution of John Mentesana's story when it comes to your journey from a kid who was passionate about food and family to corporate America and sales to being an entrepreneur in the restaurant business and growing that? Where do you see the next 10 years of your life? Because I know you've got 10 more years of good stuff in you at least.
I probably have more than 10 years. I don't like to sit still.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know what my next thing is. I like being around teams. I do. I love being an entrepreneur because you get to have that free spirit, but I do like the team aspect. I like people around me that can collaborate and work together for a common goal and build something. So the next venture is still, I got 2 more ventures in my brain. Both are definitely more collaborative focused. The pizza thing will always be the pizza thing in my heart, right? That's not going anywhere. I'll figure out something else to build from that. But the extension of, the marketing broadcast sales guy is still looming inside of me. And I don't know, maybe I take them both and blend them together. Maybe I just take it and run it on its own, but it's not done. It's not 10 years.
It's not 10 years. It's more. It's like I say, I'm not done yet.
We're not done.
No, we're not done. At the end of your life, when you look back, what would you like to be remembered for? Take your time.
It's in my brain. I can't get it out of my mouth without crying. A great husband and a great father.
Yeah. Well, you're doing both of those, so I think you're going to be able to say that. Now, we haven't even dove into our relationship.
Oh, jeez.
And we don't have time for that today. So we'll have to, I'm sure our listeners will be curious to hear a little bit more about our personal life, our family, all the good stuff. Olivia, our boys, Andrew and Nicholas, and all of the journey we've been through on that side too, but we'll save that for another episode.
Deal.
So you'll have to come back, and hopefully this wasn't too torturous for you to do this with
all
me.
Good. Love you.
Love you. Thank you for doing this with me.
Of course.
And that's this week's episode of Where Passion Meets Purpose. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this episode beneficial. And if you feel compelled to do so, share it with a friend who might benefit too. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Reach out to me anytime on my website at jenmentesana.com.